Hi, my name is Robert, and for my biointernal, I'm going to talk about the homeostatic mechanism of blood pressure in the domestic pig. Homeostasis is the process of maintaining a constant and stable environment despite changes in the external environment. Blood pressure is regulated within mammals to maintain the appropriate blood pressure, which is controlled by several mechanisms to rise and lower the pressure. Blood traveling through the vascular system from the heart causes pressure on the walls of the arteries. The amount of blood pressure is a result of factors such as volume of the blood, the resistance of the blood vessels, as well as the viscosity of the blood. The speed of the heart's contractions affecting volume and the force used, as well as the expanse and constriction of the blood vessel's radius, vascular constriction, increases and decreases the blood pressure. During exercise, blood pressure rises to increase blood flow for extracting waste products from and giving oxygen to the organs and cells throughout the body. Blood pressure is regulated in the body along with other homeostatic processes which occur in both humans and my chosen species, the domestic pig of the Suid family. Red blood cells carry the oxygen across the body to all cells which is needed for cellular function. The amount of blood pressure determines the amount of blood and oxygen carried to the cells throughout the body. Blood pressure needs to be regulated, as lower than needed blood pressure will result in a deficient amount of oxygen and nutrients to the cells in the body, leaving them unable to perform essential metabolic processes. However, on the other hand, too much pressure can cause damage to the blood vessels, causing them to become hard and inelastic. Under high pressure in scenarios of hypertension, even cause them to rupture, an aneurysm, and cause damage to the kidneys along with many other organs. Keeping blood pressure within a suitable margin and maintaining it with a negative feedback system prevents the body from malfunctioning whilst providing a sufficient amount of nutrients. The control mechanisms in the pig work in a system to detect, control, and affect the change in blood pressure, low and high. Pressure-sensitive nerve endings called baroreceptors located in the aortic arch over the heart, also in the carnivoroid sinuses, of the pig monitor the dilation or stretch of the blood vessels walls caused by the blood flowing through. Baroreceptors act in a negative feedback system when there is a change in mean arterial pressure to return pressure to a normal level. Baroreceptors, acting as a receptor in the blood pressure control mechanism, increase amounts of action potentials, short-lasting electrical nerve pulses to the central nervous system. These messages are recognized by the medulla oblongata, located in the lower half of the brainstem. The medulla detects these changes in the firing rate of action potentials from the baroreceptors and then controls the appropriate response. The medulla oblongata influences the cardiac output, the beating rate and the force of the heart, and vascular resistance or vascular constriction, both of which act as effectors to the needed change in blood pressure. It does this with activation of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system and the secretion of hormones from the adrenal glands in the kidneys. By increasing or decreasing the beat of the heart, the volume of blood flow is affected, and by vascular resistance, decreasing and increasing blood pressure is affected, thus completing the domestic pig's mechanism. Action potentials is the form of communication between the baroreceptors and the medulla of the brain through the nervous system. Action potentials use sodium and potassium ion channels in the axon membrane of the nerve cell. Outside the axon of the neuron, there is a higher concentration of sodium, Na, than inside, and it is the reverse for potassium, K, with a higher concentration inside than outside. At the beginning of the action potential, the sodium channels in the axon membrane open and the axon is filled with sodium, reaching a threshold potential. This then causes depolarization, which is then repolarized by the opening of potassium channels, and potassium moves out of the axon. This creates a change in polarity with the inside and outside of the membrane, and this impulse travels down the axon in one direction only until it reaches the axon terminal, where it's signaled to other neurons. The medulla is able to control cardiac output and vascular constriction with the secretion of hormones in response to signals from the nervous system. The release of adrenaline and noradrenaline is used to affect change in blood pressure by initiating the contraction of the blood vessels and increasing the rate of the heartbeats. These hormones are released from the adrenal glands in the kidneys. The adrenal medulla is the core of the adrenal gland and is surrounded by the adrenal cortex. The adrenal medulla receives input from the sympathetic nervous system through preganglionic fibers that originate from the spinal cord, which it then responds with the secretion of adrenaline and, to a lesser extent, non-adrenaline directly into the blood. These hormones cause the heart to beat faster or slower and the smooth muscles of the blood vessels to contract or dilate depending on the concentration of the hormone. Disruption can occur to the domestic pig's blood pressure where the negative feedback loop cannot change the blood pressure as a result of a disruption. The pig has been for many years of human history used as a source of food. Pig farms in modern day can house large populations of pigs in confined pens until their weight is sufficient for slaughtering. As a result of confined living conditions with minimal exercise, atherosclerosis, also known as arteriosclerotic vascular disease, could occur. This is where fatty deposits such as cholesterol and triglyceride build up around the walls of the blood vessels, causing a decrease in the available area for blood flow. This consequently raises blood pressure through vascular resistance as the blood is forced through a smaller diameter, and this disrupts the homeostatic process of maintaining blood pressure. The feedback loop shown can demonstrate this. A rise in blood pressure stimulus is detected by the baroreceptors, acting as the detector, in the arteries, and this causes the rate of action potentials to change. The pulse of action potentials then travels through the nervous system to the medulla, acting as the controller. The medulla detects the change in firing rate of action potentials and activates the sympathetic nervous system. The nervous system and the adrenal glands then take control in affecting the vascular dilation of the blood vessels as the appropriate response to lower blood pressure. However, due to the deposits of minerals around the blood vessel walls, vascular resistance remains high, and as a result, blood pressure also remains high, and the negative feedback system fails to reduce the blood pressure. The adaptive advantage for the domestic pig to regulate and maintain blood pressure with this homeostatic mechanism is very beneficial and ultimately necessary for sustaining the pig's life. In scenarios where the pig is affected by vascular disease, pain and cramping can occur in the affected muscles when the pig exercises. Severe atherosclerosis, completely blocked arteries, can cause serious damage to organs such as the brain and heart and kidneys, as well as severe pain from the compromised blood flow. These symptoms occur when blood pressure is unable to be regulated and maintained. The adaptive advantage for this homeostasis gives the pig the ability to function during physical exertion, giving the pig's muscles and organs the required blood.